Senator Cantwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for having this hearing, and thank you to the panelists. I know in your written testimony you talked about providing certainty and eliminating distortion of price hidden by fossil fuel costs and financing mechanisms. And one of the things that was in the last energy bill passed out of this committee, the Acela bill, was the CETA bill that both Senators Bingaman and Murkowski provided great leadership on. And obviously, we want to continue the dialogue about how we can help with, financing of energy projects, particularly given the things that have happened in the marketplace. One of the turnkey approaches that was also included in that legislation was effectively providing loans, federal loans at 1% interest with a payback over 30 years. And so I'm asking the panelists, does it make sense to harness the government's ability to, to provide patient capital and provide low-interest financing for something so important as this national interest?
You want to start?
If you do deem this to be in the national interest and that developing a new generation of energy technologies is critically important, then absolutely. I would say that that some kind of a program that takes a longer view of this would be very important. In my opening comments, I sort of alluded to the fact that the view I see just from the feedback of talking to people in our industry is that the loan guarantee program puts the federal government in kind of a tricky position of trying to take very risky bets, but at the same time trying to play it safe, because that is what they try to do as guardians of the public trust. And I think the idea that's been discussed, and I know did pass out of this committee, of creating some kind of entity that was sort of at arm's length away from the central function of the government, that may help address this question. That said, that's not intended as a criticism of the loan guarantee program, because I think that everybody's probably doing the best they can with what they've got. It's just that it's a difficult circumstance to try and make work as things stand.
Yeah, I think of these as actually three different things with varying degrees of oversight and decision-making, but the more government is going to choose as opposed to a financing mechanism, the more government is going to take their time and verify that. The more that it is access to patient capital for financing and more turnkey, something similar to what we do with like SBIR, something of that nature, the more, what's so attractive about this is that you have a revenue stream from generation. So unlike a lot of the capital we loan to small business, we have no idea really. I mean, we've had very good results with the payback to the federal government, but in this case, we actually have a revenue source, which is the generation of power. So, I mean, Mr. Coleman, I mean, do you think this is a good avenue for startups to have access to something like this?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, I think that the importance of having an entity like this is very high. I think that we need some set of programs that help companies get through what people refer to as the valley of death. It is the demonstration early commercialization point in the development of these technologies in these companies. And part of that is because there's not yet an open market that's drawing all the private capital in to actually support these technologies. And part of it is just because the capital intensity at that point for certain types of technologies in certain sectors is extremely high. And so I think you mentioned several different options for solving the problem. I think we need a portfolio of solutions. And I think that the thing to focus on, the thing that's really critically important is how do we create mechanisms that are somewhat predictable? So how do we create mechanisms where we as early stage investors are saying there isn't necessarily a valley of death anymore, right? We can look at it and we can see that there's a mechanism if we build a certain type of technology to a certain performance criteria that we can access in order to get across that valley. And I think one of the challenges has been that when you have spot programs here and there, hard to know whether you're actually going to be able to access them with your company. I think when you have an entity that has defined a certain set of criteria, it's much easier to anticipate and therefore easier to invest ahead of.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, if I could just add personal experience from Hudson's portfolio, fully agree with the statement. We've actually seen it in one of our portfolio companies called Solar Power. We recently received a $197 million loan guarantee to site a major manufacturing facility, actually in Senator Wyden's state, in Oregon, in order to build a plant that will manufacture one of the most innovative products in the solar industry. The CEO of that company that we had recruited had actually been a specialist at building and running plants in Southeast Asia in other industries. And so it was refreshing to see the U.S. government providing the competitive capital to keep this technology onshore in the United States, because other countries are offering similar attractive financing packages. And I think that's one other point to make, Senator Cantwell, that other countries are providing those kinds of competitive financing packages to incentivize manufacturing facilities to locate abroad.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.